All right, so let's start off with the pledge of allegiance. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lawrence. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
No, I think I'd like to modify, because we have so many things on the commission, on the budget. And I think we can go, I don't know, maybe somebody is, she can tell me the public records. Is that very critical, need to be discussed today? Can we postpone to the next week
I know we have Ms. Name.
and next meeting?
I know we have Ms. Name who's already here and has joined us tonight. I know it's in the agenda packet. I know, speaking for staff, we would be flexible at the commission's discretion to move that up in the agenda. I don't know the anticipated time frame for the subject.
Approximately 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes, okay, yeah, that would be great, again, move it up. But we want enough time because a lot of people we do not have enough time to talk about. Our budget is very important to everyone.
Thank you for letting us provide that input. So refer to the commission, the chair regarding that.
Anyone move new business to where? Okay,
Well, why don't we move it up to right after the union, after the public comment?
okay, so make it item 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, before her church didn't have to stay all night to get that, right?
Thank you, commissioners.
It was Commissioner Lawrence.
I'll second that with the adjustment.
Uh,
Yeah, he's the one who was that. Okay, I guess I get a new good vote for my adjustments.
amend the motion.
Amendment, yes.
Okay. Second amendment, okay. So what we're voting on is the amendment to the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Was opposed, say nay. All right, so get approval of the agenda now. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right. On to the consent agenda. Items totaling $717,752.46. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Lawrence, you second.
I'll second that.
Is there a discussion?
Yes, yeah, I just want to say that it's really great that the both IRA, I think we talk about, we discuss, there's no objections, and then also the on the reserve engine. I just want to point it out, even though it's consent agenda, I think it's good to the public and everybody knows the two important IRAs being included.
All right, so all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, motion carries. Approval of minutes from September 6th. Chair, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minute. September 6th. There. Okay. You gotta make the motion. Oh, I'll make the motion. All right.
I'll second that.
I'll get Commissioner Chan seconds the motion. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right,
Public hearings. I officially opened public hearing for the 2023 proposed South County fire budget. Anybody in the public that wishes to speak? So please raise your hand and we'll have you access to talk. All right, I am not seeing anything. Go ahead and close that hearing. And I'll open the hearing for the RFA Commissioner redistricting. Anybody from the attendees side wish to say anything? So please raise your hand. All right, not seeing any, go ahead and close that as well. On to the fire chief's report.
Okay, good evening, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners, staff, and guests, meeting attendees watching on Zoom. Commissioners, as you know, I've emailed you my fire chief report that talks about how busy we have been the past couple of weeks. I'll summarize it. We've been about 19% busier than this time last year. And I also had a request to do a little bit deeper dive into the county-wide fire incidences that happened with the windstorm. So that's in your email as well. I see VP Pat Moore from IFF Local 1828. So I may be stealing a little bit of his thunder, Commissioners, but I want to share a picture for the Coats for Kids event that we talked about last week that some commissioners were able to join. Members of staff and the school district present. I see Commissioner Chan, and I'm a little bit blocked out on anybody else on my screen that I'm looking at. I want to really thank the Fire One Foundation, IFF Local 1828, our staff, and the connections that we have made with the Everett School District, as well as our historical work with the Everett School District and Monticello School District. This brought 300 coats to needy children in the Edmonds School District through their Edmonds Hub Center, which is a great clearinghouse to make sure those most in need get the help that they can have, to include going to school with a coat to stay warm before, after, and at recess. It's a great event. There's some people on the screen there that are probably their first time, and others that have led this since day one. So this now totals 1,400 coats that have been distributed to local children. It's a great event. So with that, next slide, please. I want to talk about Jenny Cooper. And Commissioners, you have seen Jenny Cooper and her work in the field, helping our community outreach. And that is Jenny on the left with, I think that's a child. No, it's a doll. We're talking about kids under 13 sit in the back seat. It's part of what has made her good work. I am proud to announce that she is the Target Zero Task Force Public Educator of the Year. So Ms. Cooper, we congratulate you on this honor. And it's about making sure that we're educating people so we can get to Snohomish County DUI, driving under the influence, and Target Zero Task Force. What they would want to have is no injuries or fatalities. So just want to thank Jenny for her work for our RFA, starting in our training division, moving to our operations division, now having outreach to so many people in our community. Congratulations, Jenny, on this well-deserved award. And with that, let's go to another great thing, which is that the Pierce ladder truck, Commissioners, that you have authorized, that aerial ladder truck that we purchased through Hughes Fire Equipment, has now landed and is at Fire Station 10. This beautiful picture was taken during some of the training that is happening right now to make sure that we have people very qualified to be ladder operators as well as tiller operators. So I just want to notify you that this beautiful piece of equipment, generously supported by everyone in the public, our stakeholder taxpayers, especially the commissioners both here now and those who were present before that have left our organization. We thank you for your support. So thank you very much. Next slide, please. One more good news reporting that I want to talk about, and we'll pause on this slide real quick, Chris, is I want to mention that Deputy Chief Sean Maxwell has been chosen by the president of the International Association of Fire Chiefs and Board Chair, Fire Chief Donna Black, as well as the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Fire Administrator, Dr. Lori Moore Morrell, to represent the International Association of Fire Chiefs on a federal work group, which is about fire recruitment. So we're proud of Sean and his peers selecting him to be on this national level board to really talk about issues about firefighter retention, recruitment at all levels.
and all the challenges that are happening across our nation. This couldn't happen at a better time after COVID. So again, Chief Maxwell, congratulations. And he would also want you to know about the Resuscitation Academy that we recently held. We'll have some more information on this. South County Fire participated in the 2022 Resuscitation Academy at the University of Washington in Seattle. Teams from all over the world and in the United States that attended this invitation-only education. Dr. Campbell, Ops Director from Snow 911 was there, and two of our MSOs that you got to know, Anna Herbert and Tom King. So this is good stuff. This is related to some of the education that Chief Maxwell has got to acquire his master's degree. It's an example of how King County and other agencies are partnering with South County Fire, as well as we with them, to make sure that we have top-notch providers throughout the greater Puget Sound area. So great job. And then now to this slide. So best part of my week last week was Veterans Day, to be able to go to the city of Mill Creek and participate in this parade. There was also events in the city of Linwood and city of Edmonds. City of Edmonds was very busy, so Battalion Chief Joe Hughes had to be down there by himself. City of Linwood event, I was able to catch after this one. But this parade made me very proud as the son of a veteran, knowing some other veterans that are in our organization, including some on our commission here, to be able to really show what we do, our fire engine, ladder truck, aid units, medic units, and be able to proudly represent our organization as we will be providing service for the city of Mill Creek very soon. And their voters overwhelmingly supported them joining the RFA. So I see Commissioner Rowland, I think, Commissioner Bernahoff, you were there too, and Commissioner Chan. We have a really quick video that we're going to show, and this will wrap up my fire chief's report. So unless there are any questions this evening, myself and staff would welcome them, and let's roll with the video. Thank you. Great, Chris G. Appreciate you showing that. Great events, and I do have one more update. I want to mention that Deputy Chief Chalfant is not here. As of the start of our meeting, we still have 15 units on a fire residential confirmed with a transport of victims. So 3 inside the house, 2 were able to get out, 1 had to be extricated out by our crews to do a rescue on the backside of the house with the Charlies. There is an EMS transport for one of the victims on the way to Prob, unknown. But it's a great response. I'm not going to state even the general area, but just to say in Lake Serene Fire Station 23's area and our Hilltop, or excuse me, our 156 station. So Station 10, I call it Hilltop. Sounds that's where the water was. It's not Hilltop Station, Fire Station 10. With that, that's the conclusion of my fire chief report. For crews that are watching this, great job tonight on that fire event, and great job having us safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Commissioner Canyon.
Yeah, I first appreciate that report about the fire stop. So it does more than accident, more than the incident in July 4th.
Yeah, busier than the 4th of July.
I'm looking at the baseline in there, the traffic hazard from baseline 55, 509 because of the wire, which is dangerous. Medical up and also service calls up. So, but you guys can handle it okay. You don't need any additional. The runs why are they?
Based on the nature of a windstorm, which is a little bit different than even a snowstorm,
Right.
wires calls. We try to have more people when we know exactly when they're going to hit. We could have used more people. The people that were there were very busy. They got it done. We were fortunate that the wind stopped.
No, I was surprised because I read the PUD report. They only have 14 people online Sunday that help them all over because it is dangerous. Those line lanes. I appreciate it. That's give me a sense. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, commissioners.
Union report with VP Moore.
Good evening, commissioners. Can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Union report tonight, pretty short. Chief Hovisk obviously covered, the good work that our members are doing, getting out and getting coats through the community. I want to give a big shout out to one of the guys in the picture there is Captain Micah Gaston, former secretary with our e-board. And he's been kind of the spearhead behind that Coats for Kids for us and getting out and organizing the visits with the schools. So genuinely appreciate him and his dedication to that program. And then our members that get out and participate in those. So outside of that, right now we're just kind of working on getting through our station bidding right now. We go through every year where people are selecting their work assignments where they're at. And we're also currently going through, we have our general elections for our board positions. So we're going through that right now. End of the month here, we should have some new board members potentially, or the same board members. So, but outside of that, commissioners, not much else to report unless you have any other questions for me.
Or just comments. I think you guys did a really great job on deliver those codes. And also is Edmonds have a special, the center we visit is really for homeless students. So it's more appropriate that you said. I think in the past, you guys just go ahead and give jacket to the whole class, but some of them may not even need it. I thought this is a very, very good listen to the people, because again, they have a restriction, the school, I talked to the superintendent, they have restriction the fund of given, they are not allowed to get the public fund, so they are really limited in there, and so they really appreciate that. And so I encourage everyone, commissioner going to participate in this good job that union did, and they're more than welcome to do donation. They need the donation and things in there. So again, thank you for the labor doing a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Chan, I appreciate you volunteering to help out with that program. It means a lot. So also another one I just thought of too, we were able to get back into the burn center down at Harborview. And we had some members go back down there this past week, and we're able to go down and visit with the people in the burn center, some kids and whatnot. So it's nice to be getting back out and be doing those visits again. So again, those are opportunities too that are extended out as well. So but appreciate our members participating in that. With that, that'll conclude my union report.
Thank you, VP Moore. Public comment. Anybody from the public wish to speak up? If so, please raise your hand. All right, I'm not seeing anybody. We will move on to new business. Public records report and records room project update. Public records coordinator Amy Nay, executive assistant Melissa Blankenship.
Good evening. So our 2021 JLR report was submitted, and this is the presentation that I made for the board. We received 459 requests. That was 36 more than we received in 2020. The majority of our requests were completed in less than 5 days. The total number was 267 requests. Our median number of days from receipt to closure was 4 days. That's pretty good. The average is 6.3 days. There were some requests that were just a little more complicated and they required more time. 4% of the requests required clarification, and 18 requests included redactions or a denial in our final response. The most common reason for that would be information protected under HIPAA and records pertaining to a pending investigation. All of our requests were fulfilled electronically, and 6% of our requests were closed with no response. We spent an average of 3 hours per request. And it's not necessarily all of the searching and review and processing that takes up that time. It's the compliance. So the acknowledgement, the closure, search documentation, all of that's very important to make sure that we can show that we performed the search adequately. And I like for my documentation and correspondence with requester to speak for itself. And then next slide. So I did a comparison model with other special districts just to see how we're doing. And overall, as you can see, we have the lowest cost per request. And we also have one of the lower time spent on request. But really the cost per request is the most impressive figure in my opinion, because it means that we're efficiently processing these requests. We have experienced an increase year over year in the requests received. This year, we're on track to see an 18% overall increase in requests. And this month alone, it's the 15th, we've received 29 requests. So we are seeing a higher volume of requests year over. The records room grant update. So this is how the records room looked when I first started. This is actually midway through the project. It's very overwhelming, all of those boxes, to see them again. It's funny that the ladder truck was brought up earlier because I wanted to give a visual example, and with the 462 boxes that we were able to disposition, you could line up 7 of those trucks and the boxes would still be 40 feet longer. It's a lot. Next slide. Most of our records in that room were inherited. So they came from District 11, Mountain Terrace, Linwood, Edmonds, and just highlighted how much our agency has grown over the past 2 decades. And this project really highlighted some of the issues moving forward that I feel we need to address. Next slide. So records management needs to be addressed because it is extremely important. It supports our ability to make decisions and meet operational, legal, and regulatory requirements. In addition, we spend a lot of time looking for records, and I feel that if we address the way that we retain and just store our records in general, we could spend less time looking for things. So moving forward, I would like to address the problem by assembling a group to address information governance. It's something that we don't have an official program for. It's something that I learned about in Utah when Melissa and I went to the Nagara conference. And there are several different frameworks that we could go with. The one that I am going to suggest is put out by ARMA, which is nationally recognized records management. Next slide. So just briefly, information governance, it's an agency-wide framework for managing information. So it gives you a plan that you can communicate to all of the staff, and it just helps staff make decisions on a daily basis without hesitating or second guessing. That's it. That's all I have.
Thank you. I'm curious, April had a pretty big spike. Do you have any idea what was so important this last April over other Aprils?
No, I
Okay.
don't. There's not really a trend to it. Just all of a sudden there are lots more, just like November. I don't have no idea why November is. Has been.
Any other questions? Commissioner Lawrence?
Yes, that's like 2 months of one person's work just on the records request. So, about right?
Yeah.
And you and Melissa share a little bit of that. Records request work,
Yeah.
you're doing all that now.
Amy is the sole processor.
And so the rest of your job is
It's
records.
Yeah.
And squaring things away. And making the records keeping more efficient and effective, which helps all these guys,
yes.
the rest of the guys, the growls, okay? One thing about the records we request, it's low cost, you're doing it efficiently. But you're doing it accurately because we haven't been sued.
Correct.
What we learned from the conference. What school district over there in east side of the mountains, huge costs went forward. The screw ups, yeah. Thank you for saving us lots of money. It doesn't happen by accident, not screwing up. I know that from experience.
Liaison Todd and then Commissioner Kenny.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to put in a vote of support for the information governance approach. I know when I was on the board at Community Transit, they set about a similar project and took themselves through a process, first starting with a consultant and did a lot of it internally. And they've thought they'd spend a lot of money with new information governance systems. When they got all done, they improved their practices such that it didn't cost them that much money going on. And a lot of employees were a lot happier with how they were keeping records, putting them away in the first place. So they didn't spend so long looking for them. I've been a proponent of this at Mill Creek. We've got a big issue at Mill Creek. And so I encourage all of us to learn from others that are close to us. And like Community Transit, I think is a resource you might want to tap into. I can make a connection if you'd like. Thanks.
Hey, Commissioner Todd, you're, or Mike, liaison Todd, you're not gonna try to hire Amy away from us, I hope.
No. Absolutely not. But we can all learn from each other. That was my point. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Kenny.
Yes, Ms. Nay, I wanted to ask about in your data that you provided, you indicated of the 459 requests in 2021, only 18 of them required redaction. That seemed extremely low to me. I'm involved in doing redactions every day. I probably do a third of that every workday. And so I was very surprised to see so few redactions. Why so few redactions?
That is because most of the requests are from people who have experienced a fire in their home. They're just requesting records related to the fire incident. Those require little, if any, reductions. Most of our requests are pretty straightforward. We're lucky, and so I'm happy that we have so few required redactions, because redactions are tedious and sometimes just a little intimidating.
Well, it's definitely money well spent. In the last 10 years, both the city of Edmonds and the city of Linwood have had public records lawsuits that they ended up paying out one way or another on. One of them, the Edmonds one, was related to a public records request here through South County Fire. So there's big dollars on the table in terms of liability and having good people who know what they're doing, making sure we're dotting the T's and crossing the T's and dotting the I's. It's money well spent. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, sorry, when you talk, I cannot hardly clearly what you talk. Did you mean how? Now is because everything going electronic now, because before you saw the pictures, it's boxes. Is that, are you more scanning everything now? Or?
No, I think most people want their records quickly, and the fastest way to get those to them is electronically, via email or through our portal.
So but all your sources are also your, have been scanned and you don't need to go boxes anymore? It's
No,
not yet.
every now and then we will get a request that does require searching through the boxes and scanning sometimes, but the majority are records that are they're born electronically. So don't need to scan, don't need to really search through any file rooms or anything like that.
I think I mentioned that my son worked for a company called Michael, I don't want to mention the name, but what they do is just file, organize files and all that stuff. They work for CIA and FBI and many government. Of course, they have a lot of restriction, who can download and all that stuff. I thought that's a very good way. So if the files are well organized, you can search pretty quickly, right? Is our ability to do that in here?
That is something that I'm hoping to address moving forward with the information governance to improve how quickly we're able to find the data that we need.
So if someone want to know the minutes on a certain day, so then you probably can pretty easily.
Yeah.
Put it out. Okay. Thank you. Good job.
Any other questions? Oh, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
On to budget adoption. CFO Bothwell and Chief Otis.
All right, well, good evening, commissioners. We are at the end of the budget calendar. So tonight we're asking you to consider adopting the budget package. The 5 resolutions that make up the budget package are included in your packet. Each of the resolutions does require a separate vote. And the general property tax, the EMS levy, and the benefit charge all must be sent to the county by November 30th. So this is kind of our last opportunity to get those voted on before they're due to the county. And that's the introduction.
All right, so. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve item 10A, actually. It would be 11A because we moved the business. The 2023 budget adoption for all funds, resolution 11152022-19. So, thank you. Is there a second? Second. So, thank you, Commissioner Fairnoff, for the second motion. Any discussion?
The question for you, you send us a spreadsheet, and we cannot, we go through those items again, or we just go?
We can if we need to.
Okay.
Right now, there's motion on the floor to move forward with the resolution as it stands.
So if I vote yes, that means whatever the spreadsheet is all included, it's all yes, is that correct?
Right. For that. The. Question. Yeah, Commissioner Kenny.
Yes, thank you. So I am opposed to the budget, and I'll be voting no on it. I encourage other commissioners to vote no. My concern is that this year, we are increasing taxes when we don't need to. We are funding things that are nice to have, but we don't have to have. And at a time when we are perhaps about to fall into a recession, perhaps we're not in one already. Currently, the consumer price index for October is running at 8.9% CPI, increase in inflation year over year. Food prices are currently 11.5% increase year over year. Energy prices, including gasoline, 22% increase year over year. And just the New York Times in the last 2 days has had stories about Amazon, which is a significant employer in the Seattle area, laying off 10,000 employees. Not all of those would be in Seattle, but in the area. And Meta, the company that owns Facebook or runs Facebook, layoffs of 11,000 employees. There have been other layoffs announced in the news. There are the storm clouds of recession are darkening. Yet South County Fire staff and board passes this, the board operate as if times are good. I don't think times are good. Times are tough. And families in South County Fire are feeling that. And yet South County Fire is going to raise taxes in an amount that it doesn't need to. You look at page 53 of 205 in the packet, you will see that this budget has a 2% increase in property taxes and a 2% increase in the benefit charge. These items are not necessary at those percentages to fund South County Fire. In addition, if you look at page 47 out of 205, South County Fire is using a percentage of bank capacity in addition to fund the budget. The reason why I say that these things are not necessary, you can take a look at page 49 out of 205 in the packet. Things that aren't necessary, nice to have, but not necessary, and which we've talked about and I've discussed earlier in the fall. The EMS assistant chief, the training battalion chief, the deputy fire marshal, the PIO staff aide, the grants program administrator, the ACT coordinator, the brush truck, the rescue solo washer. All of these items, nice to have, not have to have. And at a time when the taxpayers of South County Fire are hurting, we just add those on top of additional tax increases. And those items, including the capital costs, like the cars that those people drive, which of course we would have to have new cars for them, as almost $1.6 million. So in addition, you take a look at page 205, this budget and its tax increases include in the middle of the page under transfers to facilities maintenance reserve, which is our building fund, $500,000. And that $500,000 is just taxes added to what I would call is a pile of cash. I had it I don't have it in the packet this week, but when we looked at the same packet last week, it's approximately $25 million in that reserve account. And so this 500,000 is added to that. That's just sitting there. That's $25 million sitting there that is not going to be used or not used much this year. I understand it's for an interesting, potentially valuable purpose down the road, but we've also talked about the fact that it doesn't go very far to meet our $250 million of capital need, which is, in my opinion, is only going to be funded by the people through a voted on bond sometime in the near future. And so we're raising taxes to throw at least 500,000 onto a pile of cash. And that 500,000 would be better in our taxpayers' pockets, paying for gasoline, paying for food. But instead, it'll just be in our pocket. Or it's going to pay for those $1.6 million of nice add-ons. Those aren't have to happen. And so that's my concern about the budget, that these are, I'm not saying these things have some value, but in a time of trouble, do we really need them? My answer is no, and thus my vote no. The long-term outcome of this is seen at page 59 out of 205, which has the long-term forecast. There, you look in every year, next year and every year going out, there's deficits over revenues versus income. And so it's not as though we're bringing in enough money to fund ourselves. We have a structural deficit problem, but this is nothing new. But the solution that repeatedly comes from the chief is one solution only, and that is raise taxes. Raise taxes year after year after year. And so when you see those deficits, I go, well, how are we gonna, we're gonna cut the budget? We could do something. We never seem to cut the budget. This seems like a year you might cut the budget when times are tough, but we never seem to cut the budget. We're always adding positions. Remember earlier in this year, we added a position for finance. We added a position for HR. I think we might have added another position. We're adding all these back office functions, but in a time not only of difficulty overall regionally and nationally, but also our own extended forecast budget, we've got red as far as the eye can see. The historical solution from the chief is raise taxes. I think we need to think of other alternatives besides just raising taxes. And that's my concern, both for this year, but also as I'm looking to the out years is, how are we gonna solve this other than raising taxes? That is one way to solve it. But there isn't any discussion here from the chief about, well, how are we gonna address this? Is there something else to do besides raising taxes? It's just about, I gotta have this, I gotta have this, I gotta have this, and raise the taxes to fund it. And in the meantime, we're sitting on $25 million that's just gonna sit there. And if you look at our ending cash balance fund, of course, I don't have right here, my recollection was there's either 31 or $33 million. There's money there, and yet we continue to raise taxes from our taxpayers' pockets to lay into these large piles of cash. That makes no sense to me. The money would be better off in my taxpayers' pockets than our pockets. We could reduce the amount of taxes that we're taking from the people in their time of trouble. But here at South County Fire, we appear to just march ahead, raise taxes, raise taxes, raise taxes, blinders on that. Well, about what's going on around us. And while, I understand from the bureaucratic point of view, that's the way, got to build your kingdom, and everybody costs more every year. We need more positions, but we've got this tension between we're not bringing enough of money, we've got all these needs, but the chief solution is raise taxes. That's not my knee-jerk reaction to raise taxes, but there hasn't been any investigation for this year of something different. And while I understand that in 1 year, what about next year and the year after and the year after? Because every year going out, we're in the red. But again, we're not talking about dealing with that in a structural way other than the historical solution, which is raise taxes. So I think it's time to not raise those taxes. I'll vote no on the budget. Thank you.
Liaison Todd, you have your hand up, but I don't call you Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks. I asking for clarification from staff based on something that was just stated by Commissioner Kenny. I believe that the addition of at least one half of a fire marshal is to provide fire marshal and fire inspection services to the city of Mill Creek, for which the city of Mill Creek is paying directly. Could staff please confirm that?
That is correct. That is correct, Liaison Todd, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can. Thank you. So I just want to point out that I'm not disagreeing with agreeing or disagreeing with what Commissioner Kennedy want to clarify that one thing. That's not a nice to have, that's a necessary to have. City of Mill Creek does need those services and plans on using those and paying for those. Second point I would make is that I don't know exactly how the numbers work out, but I think that strategically, South County Fire is at a place where you're looking at bringing people into the fold of the fire authority itself. And I think that the belief is, and I think the numbers bear out that the incremental cost of providing service to Mill Creek is less than the revenue that comes in because of the efficiencies of having a larger organization where we spread our command structure, spread our leadership structure, spread this commission over more taxpayers who have AV that they brought into the system. So there's a step good discontinuity in terms of the tax collections this year that's significant. Now, that may not solve all of the problems that Commissioner Kenny was speaking about, but I think that strategically, this year is absorbing Mill Creek and potentially absorbing some other contract partners in the next couple of years. And I look forward to that as a way to get efficient and make it so it's not always a taxpayer burden as was referred to. Thanks.
Thank you, Liaison Todd. Commissioner Lawrence.
Commissioner Kenny, are you suggesting that that the items on the chief's list are okay if we pay for it with the 25 million, or just scrap that for this?
Well, as currently outlined in this motion and these materials, scratch that list.
But if we weren't going to raise taxes, we just used up the cash in the bank. Would you be okay with that?
Well, the overall solution would be to reduce the amount of taxes we're taking by the amount you're no longer spending. That would be the true give. Right, the 1.6 million. If you're not spending that, reduce your tax increase by the 1.6 million. That gives it back to people or doesn't take it from their pocket.
Well, okay. you're a bit more advanced than I am on this stuff. So I'm not for raising any taxes. So how does that fit in with what you just said? Not raising, you're talking about giving the money back. Does that mean the same thing I'm saying, not raise any taxes? Just last week I asked that question, it was $30 per. So are we on the same page? No new taxes, no raising taxes?
I believe so, yeah.
And liaison Todd, could you and by me again and way I might be able to understand it? What you said?
I apologize. I did not hear the question clearly. If you're asking me a question.
Well, yeah, could you reduce what you just said earlier in terms that I can understand it? That might be hard for you, I know.
Okay, sorry. So my point was that the overall revenues have increased in this budget by a step function because of the addition of Mill Creek. And so the assessed value has gone up significantly, and therefore your revenues have gone up significantly. And it's my belief that the revenues thereby added to the budget exceed the direct, what I want to say, the variable costs of providing that service. Yes, you have to provide 25 more firefighters, one more fire engine, and take care of Station 76. But we didn't add, the organization didn't add another 1/7 of a chief and another 1/7 of a this and a that. And so I think there's some efficiencies of scale that we're looking towards. And I think you're also looking forward towards pulling those contracts, those old contracts from Briar, Montlake Terrace, and eventually Edmonds in. And I think strategically, that's the path forward. That's the point I was trying to make. Thanks.
So, yeah, that's in the future, it's gonna probably pan out, but last week you weren't for raising taxes $30. Mill Creek's already, citizens are not, they're already gonna have a higher bill next year than they did last year, because either you were gonna pay District 7 a lot of money or pay us a little bit less money, and that's why you joined us. And your citizens are gonna be a little like, maybe a little bit sticker shock when they get their tax bill. Because most of them probably don't really understand what happened and what they voted for, realistically. So you were not in favor of raising taxes $30 last week. So where are we at this week?
Let me clarify that last week, there was an amendment being proposed by one of the commissioners to also to have an additional increase in taxes above what the chief's budget. And I spoke against that, did not have a vote, but I'm in support of the chief's budget. And that's the budget that's being presented tonight. So I'm in support of the budget, although I do not have a vote.
All right, thanks, Commissioner, Chief CFO Bothwell. Could you explain to me where I'm confused?
About Commissioner Kenny's comments or about?
About everything. I'm just confused now between
Okay, so
everybody's comments.
what Liaison Todd's describing is the economies of scale argument that comes into play when we increase the population that we're serving. He's saying that we're not adding a proportionate amount of some functions like command staff and back office functions. And so per capita, the services get a little cheaper for everybody. I think that's what I see. Liaison Todd's nodding, so I think that's right there. And what Commissioner Kenny is describing is taking some of these enhancements out of the budget and then reducing the property tax levy that the taxes that we're asking the public to pay, having a 1-for-1 offset, which would reduce the burden if we were to do it, what Commissioner Kenny's describing.
Commissioner Kenny is saying let's reduce tax.
Compared to what's in the chief's preliminary budget.
I mean,
It would still,
what can we do so that the taxes don't go up at all for the people? And the only way we're going to get extra revenue is because increased amount of people paying more houses, paying property.
so then we would not take the allowable 1% annual increase on the regular property tax.
so not take it, that will act. So what do we gotta do to not have taxes go up to what, is that what we're planning, to go up 1%?
That's the kind of optional piece of it. The other, the overall property tax levy is changing a lot this year because we have the annexation of Mill Creek and construction value that's being added to the tax rolls. We're
Right.
taxing all those things.
Yeah.
So we have the benefit charge going up by 2%. And we have the,
Because we're
Effectively.
raising it 2% benefit charge,
that's correct.
so that's a raise of taxes.
Yeah, of 2%.
So we're talking, we're raising taxes.
Correct.
Well, I don't want to raise taxes. What are we gonna do?
I
I
think
guess
what-
vote no with Jim, Commissioner.
Maybe I jump in to help you
Yeah.
out. There's inflation in costs and everything else. Okay. It's a very difficult government. When you collecting money, it's not because you make produce additional wages, like commercial business, like. Regardless, we have taxes or not, there was some call for response time and all that. So our function is not a strict relationship between revenue and expense, it's not. Okay. So what happened when we have inflation going on, the cost of operating? Are we just give up? Are we just not responding? Is that what the tenants, our taxpayer want?
Well, that's, okay,
I mean,
okay, what do the taxpayers want? We don't know, because we haven't asked. That's one of the
Right.
ideas that I sort of floated a while ago, so why don't we ask them? But another way to ask them is to put out a bond. So
Right.
we're kind of just raising without really asking.
No, I don't like the word you say raising. Number one, I think Commissioner Leeson taught me that in our study, right now $1.51. If more come in at 48 cents, all the way down, we will be Eastman. I think you might have still all the records on that. You and I kind of study that.
What's that?
When more people joining in, our rate will go down, our levy rate will go down.
Yeah, well, one of the advantages with Mill Creek coming in is the cost to provide service for Station 76.
Right.
Is less.
Right.
Than the revenue they were bringing in. It could be the same thing with Briar. When Briar comes in, the reality is they're at 66 cents per thousand instead of the current $1.51. And so we already know what their costs are. They would bring additional revenue that's not have an expense attached to it.
Chief Eastman, I know you're telling me something that probably wish I understood.
Well, no, actually,
But the long and the short of it is, I know, I understand economy of scale. I know, I grok that part. Okay, I understand. But at the end of the day, did we, next year, are people's taxes gonna go up from last year? Based on with this budget, with this, if we say no, then they won't go up.
Well, this is 40-year high historical inflation that the nation is experiencing right now.
So that
Even
means,
if we didn't change a thing, we're gonna have to increase revenues, or we're gonna have to dip into reserves to maintain the status
well,
quo.
then we dip in reserves and then just ask them if they like the service they're getting. And put the bond, and they're gonna say, no, we wanna save money, and if you're 10 minutes getting to me instead of 8. Then that's the way it goes, or I die on the way to the hospital because I had an EMT and not a paramedic. Or no EMT even, just throw them in the back of the cab or Uber. So why don't we let the voters decide? It's like, someone's got to put a stop to this insanity, and the federal government, we can't stop. We got, it's just crazy. So I'm saying, I'm gonna stop it here. Just let the people decide. But I know that sounds like you guys are doing a great job. You know how I feel about you guys. Doing a great job. You're working hard. Everybody's working hard. Every once in a while, some kind of weird thing crops up that we can't talk about right now. But I know what you guys do. I know that you're working hard. Staff and all the firemen, paramedics, everybody's working hard. And, but maybe we're just providing too good a service for that they don't want. They don't want to pay for it. Let's ask them. I just want to ask the people that are paying the rate, because they're getting hit from all sides. And I have a real pet peeve, real problem with government agencies. Everybody gets their little cost of living increase. What about the guy at Fred Meyer's? Suck it up, Mr. Guy at Fred Meyer's, or whatever machine shop you're at that you're making parts for going. Because sorry, we can't afford it. We're not making, we lost money last year. We can't raise. I guess you want to stick with us, you gotta, you know how it is, but automatic increases for government employees, when's that ever gonna stop? So it's a problem. Doesn't mean I really appreciate you guys. And I'd like to give you a raise. In fact, you should ask for a raise, Sean, based on how good you are and what people are saying, how, you know, what you're doing. You're getting all these awards, you're going places. Amy just did a great job. I know she's doing a great job. But I'm sorry, we don't have the money. So I hope you don't quit.
I didn't ask for a raise, but I did ask him to be promoted through this budget process. So that is one of my asks for him.
But
So-
you don't get a raise and pay them. You'll get you a promotion.
Those two things usually come hand in hand, but I can appreciate what you're saying,
Yeah.
Commissioner. And I just want to put this in perspective if I could, before the discussions continue to ensue about this budget. So in 2020, our RFA decided in the middle of a pandemic to ask the voters, should we have a fire benefit service charge, not a tax, but a service charge to help fund our organization. And that overwhelmingly passed. And we are the only agency in this county that has that. And I will leave it to Liaison Todd to offer his observations. But I'm going to guess that the city of Mill Creek's considerations and their high voter turnout to join our RFA is in fact because we have that great way to gain revenue. That's, we think, a fair way to do it. That's year 2020. I asked for a status quo budget in 2020. I just got appointed chief in August of that year. So in a 3-month process, the board approved that essentially status quo budget as we considered the fire benefit service charge. In 2021, I made a number of offers to the commission for consideration that would have added, I believe, 7 full-time employees off the top of my head. I think we figured out to add 3. Now in front of you now, you have my proposal in 2022 for 2023. My third budget as chief, really the second one where I'm asking for anything to really keep up with this high inflation rate and to get us, I think, the support to be able to do what we need to do to continue to support the growing needs of our community. I know it's tough out there. I'm a taxpayer too. I live in this RFA and nothing that is being said here is not correct or what every other agency in Washington state across the nation is grappling with. For us, one thing I'm extremely proud of is our mill rate, our taxation rate. This RFA was formed, we were at $2 a thousand. This budget is approved, we're at $1.20. This does have ass, but I just want to put in perspective that what Chief's asking for is what Chief thinks that we need. I completely know the commission has its role and you guys are the gatekeepers for that budget. So I just wanted to add that
I'm
perspective.
gonna counter the idea that the people in Mill Creek voted to join in mostly because we asked them to. They just said they're doing a good job, I don't trust them. And the city of Mill Creek politicians asked them to. That's why they don't. I do a survey, how many people understand what the benefit charge, what it is? I guarantee it, they don't know what the heck. They just voted yes, just like they voted it in because we asked them to. Okay,
You're probably
but they
right.
don't know when if they find out, well, we got what 6% right now of the youth, we could go to 60%.
Not asking for that. No.
Yeah, and if they find out, we might have a revolution on our hands, what we actually signed up for when the benefit charge, but so it comes back to no new taxes, like Bush said, read my lips.
I've read them and I agree. And I don't want to speak for the city of Mill Creek residents or voters.
Yeah.
I'm not elected or appointed directly to
Well,
them. So that's-
politicians could say anything they want. I just said,
I will say with,
Whether-
as a matter of what I think is fact, that the city of Briar and city of Mount Lake Terrace residents, or even the city of Edmond residents that I talked to about the benefit charge, think that it's a better, fairer way to collect revenue, and they're interested in it. I'm not gonna speak for Mill Creek, but certainly the people.
do
that I
they know
heard
that we
about
could just raise their taxes any old time without,
it, as said in statute, yes.
do they know that?
I
the
don't
people
know.
you
if they
talk-
know- I don't know if they know that.
Well, ask them
but I
that
know-
question. That's
I
like,
know-
they say, I voted for what? That's what your answer, your reply you're gonna.
That's all I just
Okay.
wanted to offer that. So
All
thank
right.
you, commissioners, for giving me a little bit of a soapbox on that. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Richard Jam?
Yeah, actually. See, the question rate, basically, you're taking the banking capacity $2 million. That is all this raises at the time. The taxes raised is a complicated way because the value of the appraised value have gone up. But now the taxes is going to be lower if all the appraised value gone down. That's what we happened in 2008, right? So that's why here's on. I really do not like this conversation. Should have done a month ago, not at this time. And I'm going to bring up a questions on the budget. Everybody, well, how many minutes are going to spend? It doesn't. We need to change the whole process. Really go through. Now, what I'm it's really difficult to debate my friends. Kenny here. One thing we need strategically, we said we need to build all the stations to total and capital facility plan. Now, that call a pile of money is called reserve. And that's exactly, you basically reserve the money that you're going to spend. Further, why the condo collapse? Again, the tenant, the condo owner do not want to raise the fund. And that's why it's great, but they do not have the reserve. What happened is they eventually find the crack in the building. They said, we have too much money, but we don't have money to fix it. Just let it go. If anyone in the homeowner association have done that, that's called reserve. It's not a pile of money. On the pile of money on $25 million, I can send it out to you. Our Linwood High School, we're gonna need $12 million. We will land $4 million right away. Total of a $16 million to build. The Edmonds, when we acquire that building, it's going to be $6 million of operating space. We offer that, and then right away $16 million. Then you have about $13 million about building fund. That's a lot. That's another $26 million. 22, station 22. We need to knock down the whole building straight, and we're going to rebuild that for $12 million. So another station 23. Yeah, that's about 30 million. You add them all up, it's way more than $25 million. So either we should not have done the acquisition. If you do not do the acquisition, we cannot service the next 25 years. We're looking ahead. Okay, so this are the things that we need to do. So that's why I asked. So either we strategically say no, or have committed to do this already. So we need the funding this. Now, maybe the question is that Sebo, on the page 19 or 65, you have the long range forecast on the deficit. So how are you going to deal with that? 2023, 179,000. You want me to see the page?
I know what you're talking about, the 6-year forecast. Yeah. So we don't have an immediate plan to deal with that. And so what that page or what that analysis kind of informs is this idea that we do have a structural deficit. We have our costs are going, no matter what we do, our costs are going to increase at a rate that's higher than our taxes are allowed to increase. That's so that the idea that we would never raise taxes means that every year we're going in and cutting things and we're reducing levels of service. And at some point you get to the point where you either can't provide the service because your levels of service are so low. And so we don't have an immediate solution for that. We're going to bring a financial analysis to the board in the first quarter to talk about when we think the board should, or when some work that's previously been done around the EMS levy and the general property tax levy, the lid lifts, when that should happen. But we don't have a plan. And to be honest with you, this isn't my first local government, and no local government has a really comprehensive plan that takes care of it. It's a structural deficit that's caused by the limits on property tax at the state level. So this conversation is not unique to this organization. Every local government is having this conversation. And it's just worse this year because we have huge inflation and our property tax revenue is still capped at a very low rate that is this year 8.5% less than our costs are increasing. So if I had an answer, I would be evangelizing that to every local government around. There is no easy solution though.
So based on that, Chief Howard last year remember we looked at that, the 2 pages we looked at, and he did correct the situation. Did not as severe as right now. So I am definitely, first of all, I object to the process, and also that we're not able to talk about. So I'm not supporting the deputy chief, because they did not give me enough data, how many hours, why you need that. And I did not support the ready rebound, that particular, and then I do not support what's the machine that water machine that was that solar water. I did not support that, and I did not support the brush truck. But I'm not going to throw the baby out of the water with the water, because really at this stage, I will support it, but based on what I said, we better set up a very much better. I hope you still don't buy that thing yet. Put that in the reserve, all right, and slow it down. And then next year, we really need to go back to the old process. We start the whole strategic plan in April. Remember that we have all that thing, and really talk about this big stuff right on the top, and rather than in the last meeting of it. So, and then I also trust you, even though you did not give me an hour for each job, I trust you that you really need that people. You might also spending more money before we have the money, so to speak, because we're building infrastructure for Brian to come in, for monitors coming, and even Evans to come in. So I'm trusting you on that reason. And then again, I'm telling, as a job of a commissioner, not only we just cut budget, any people can cut budget, but we also know that we need the resources to build a station, other things. We need to have that money. That's why last meeting, I asked to raise that money. Now, actually, it's not a really good way to say, well, taxpayer, you better don't trust me with $30. You keep it, and I don't know how to handle it. That's not a good message. And that's why, Mike, in the general, everyone knows about it. Amazon have been losing money every year, but they said, I'm going to invest some money into the future, build a bigger organization. That's why the stock gone up. They only give you dividend. They said, I cannot invest the money better than you do. Here, you give the money. So I'm saying that, yes, right now we have deficit. Taxpayer trust us. We will invest this money in the station, in all the infrastructure we need for the regionalization. And that's our answer to the tax. So don't just look at, as a commissioner, you cannot just look at 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You got to look at that, how the future, are you build up this station? So I would vote yes, not very happily. But I just want, in the interest of time, I vote yes.
Just said what Commissioner Chan was the first item that you mentioned, was it the deputy fire marshal addition?
Addition, yeah.
Okay, and that's part of what Mr. Todd had mentioned. It's going to be offset by the revenues from the city of Mill Creek as we.
But on the future, I really like when you get a new position, justify how and what this type person do. So I can quantitatively, I said, okay, not just because we're busy.
Right.
Because when you're busy, it might mean you're inefficient. Right.
Sure.
And instead of that, most of the companies do that. We said that, right? Have a matrix for each job. What are the matrix that require that? So that is a good business practice.
And I just want to mention, I know Mr. Todd knows this, that, you know, since Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue had been providing those services, the city didn't know by the hour how much was provided, but some of their deputy fire marshals over there were doing the work. We couldn't quantify it. We will be able to do that once we start doing that work. And I know it is an important need for us to be able to provide that service after the secondary interlocal is agreed to by the city and the RFA. We do need the person, and I hear what you're saying, and that's a good position to talk about how we're spending.
Very simple. How many inspection they do, how many plan they provide, and then compare to the general, say, okay, is that really value? Is that, you know, justified that position?
Gotcha.
That's all I can do.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And then based on Mr. Lawrence, what Chris was talking about bringing back CFO Bothwell, having that conversation in Q1, I'm intrigued by what you're talking about to find out what the residents think, what they're willing to support us with. So we want to have that as part of the conversation, commissioners, to do that, because we've asked questions in the past, but before our RFA was formed about what people think, and it's important for them to be able to do that. As many people as we have watching this tonight, you know, if this is 270 or 300,000 people, when you add staff and people watching this, we're probably 70 people. And a lot of them work here. So I like what you're saying, and I appreciate your comments. So just want to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Teal.
Yeah, thanks. I'm in support of the chief's budget, and I'll be voting in favor of it. And I'd be happy to hear what the other commissioners who haven't spoken yet, what their opinion is.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, Chief, would you agree that over the last 5 years that the needs of the RFA have changed?
Yes.
And that even though, to characterize something that Commissioner Kenny had mentioned, teams always come back, they always come back, they always ask for more, they always ask for a great number of things. But I think over the last 5 years, we've seen a definite growth. We've seen transit enter the area. We have Oak Creek, Briar, Mount Lake Terrace, all being under consideration. And true, we might not need a brush truck this year, and maybe program grant writer, we can actually secure a brush truck without raising taxes that Commissioner Lawrence has mentioned. But I think we need to do exactly what Commissioner Chan has mentioned, and that is really just to summarize, be future ready. Right, we have to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place. We acknowledged Chief Maxwell for his accomplishments, but Chief Maxwell could write his ticket tomorrow and go someplace else. And so we don't have, and we haven't groomed our assistant EMS program. So in terms of looking at the bigger picture, the longevity of things, and also sort of being that's rather new, I would go for your budget, potentially with some exceptions, but still in all, I think it's a good need, and I agree with Commissioner Chan on some items. For example, the ready rebound, the rescue solo walker, maybe we could put those on to next year's look. See, I do hear and acknowledge the need for the deputy fire marshal for Mill Creek. I think that is something that gets absorbed into their budget. Certainly these smaller items can't be thrown out. I think Commissioner Chan used praise throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I think that's inappropriate when we're looking at some very small items with very good programs such as the chaplaincy service for Support 7. That's an outstanding
program at a figure of $1,200. And we're saying no. No, I think we need to look at this in its totality and its value, and then provide you as our due diligence is to give you guidance on how we need to have this discourse continue in the future ahead of a final vote. And I agree with Commissioner Chan on that.
Well, thank you for that. And, you know, some of these items like Ready Rebound, I think are critically important and can actually be cash positive for the RFA. They're probably something even for a subject for a future work session, even this budget process to talk about that, because that's great, but it's, you know, we could talk about that for about an hour, which maybe is too long, especially tonight, but there's some ways we can bring some of these things back and talk about the value and importance for this, for our most important asset, which is our people. Getting them back to work quicker, healthier, and us saving on premiums for L&I, a lot of cool stuff. So thank
I
you for
want
your
to follow
comments.
up with that because I think that's an excellent point. We may not actually understand what this means. And I think the more information we have, the more comfortable we feel with rendering a yes or no. That's important. And so it's about presentation, but maybe we can have, you know, separate workshops or something. Invite us to something, an event in which they're demonstrating this. I think Commissioner Chan and I talked about that. We'd like to see one of these washers in use. We'd like to see the comparison between us, say, for example, scrubbing down an SCBA and then putting it in the unit and watching that decontamination process. That would inform me more so than just a 5, you know, we give you 5 minutes, you know, to talk, but maybe we need something more than that to inform us.
Well, we used to have an opportunity outside of COVID to have the retreats or workshops about budget. That's one of the things since I've been in this role because of COVID, we haven't had the opportunity to do that, or this wasn't the opportunity made to do so. And I certainly want to have a well-supported budget process so the commission is feeling fully informed. And those times that we did that, or a Friday, you can't get back. But they actually make meetings, I think, go more smoothly, more informed stakeholders with you as governance representing all of the people in our island.
Everybody does a great job in here, okay?
Then maybe,
When we say no to something, it's not because we're being critical of you or your ideas. It's just, we need.
Chief Hooks, maybe you can slow down yourself, see by one machine, see how it goes, rather than 4 at one time. This
We
is
had
end
that
right now.
idea of, you know, if we
Right.
can find the fire station that's got the best plumbing,
Just,
so we're not,
yeah,
we're gonna have
just
to,
test it out.
right? So we don't have to spend, exactly, test it
Okay.
out in a centralized location. I'll tell you today, that fire residential I talked to you about, a station 10s and 23s. 10s is close, 21s is close.
Just test one and then you buy the other one. All right.
That's not bad. Thank you.
Fair enough.
The other commission, Mr. Rowland.
So looking at the page 55, property tax levy analysis. Mr. Rothwell. I don't have the numbers that correspond with these lines, but just given kind of where they're at. The current effective combined levy rate, including the benefit charge for this year was $1.50, correct? That's the orange line there?
Yes.
Okay. And for next year, I'm guessing what, it's $1.20, $1.30, what's the actual?
$1.20.
$1.20.
Mhm.
So that's gone down by about a little over 20% per 100,000. And the average value of a home in the area, has it gone up by more than 20%?
Correct.
Okay, so the effect is, yes, there will be an increase, but the levy rate comes down to offset that.
Correct.
The second question I have is, when it comes to, I guess we all take this for granted, but the bank capacity that we have, how do we get there? Where did that come from?
Back when the benefit charge was voted on, when voters approved the benefit charge, the maximum levy that a fire organization can have went from $1.50 per thousand of assessed value down to $1. And so we were above the dollar. And so we lost some of our property tax. We lost 50 cents of property tax capacity, but we also shifted the property tax we were collecting over to the benefit charge. And so the way that the state calculates, the way that the county or the state calculates our maximum levy or I guess our maximum levy is where we've been in the past. And so when our levy got cut, that amount we were levying as property tax, that we weren't allowed to levy anymore because we were at the dollar. Because as a result of the benefit charge, that became banked capacity. And what we needed was for assessed value to increase so that we could actually access that to keep us under the dollar. And this year we were looking for 12% increase in assessed value would make all of that accessible to us. And we got more than that, over 20%. And so now it's all that capacity is accessible to us again. But it was the result of benefit charge kicking in. So we shifted property tax over to the benefit charge, but we still maintain that property tax capacity, and that was considered banked capacity.
Gotcha. Thank you. Couple points that I have is, we do talk about inflation. We talk about the cost of everything going up, the cost of doing business. Those costs have increased for us as well. We're not a tech company. We weren't making hay during COVID. We were struggling to get by, keeping costs down. We weren't hiring tens of thousands of employees because everybody was working remotely, and these tech companies needed to staff up. And now that we're past the epidemic, they're staffing down. They're going to staff down naturally. And there are fears of the recession, although the numbers that came out just last week in regards to the rate of inflation, it looks like they didn't even hit the estimates, and that there is optimism to be had there. Not saying that we're out of the weeds yet. It still may happen, but using the tech companies' hiring practices as a way to judge how we should run our business, I think is a false equivalency. Because their model of doing business, their ebb and flow of demand and supply for money is radically different than ours. We all voted just a few months ago to approve a labor contract that did increase the cost of our labor. And that's 60% of our budget right there. So if we go into this with our stated goal of we don't want taxes to be raised $1. If the goal is $0 raised, that money has to come from somewhere. And we already voted to raise the cost of doing business just in labor alone, which is a large portion of our budget. So I think that the stated goal of not raising taxes it sounds good, but I think that when it meets reality, it can't be. It just doesn't even make sense that would be our goal, because if that was our goal, then we're going to have to decrease what we're spending on keeping up the trucks, what we're spending on building maintenance, what we're spending here at the office, what we're spending just in general for overhead. We've kept their prices down for years compared to the other agencies. We have some of the lowest staffing rates in each of our departments. That's applaudable. We've done very well, and they have asked for a few more positions. Maybe the chief should have come and asked for all 7 positions, and then we could have felt better saying, no, you can only have 3. But he came to us with three that have needs. I met with the fire marshals when I first came on, and they talked about the needs. That's something I don't think we've had a presentation on the backlog of businesses that haven't been inspected in a number of years, both from COVID and from understaffing. And I know that right at the end of COVID, I was visiting a friend's mother in a nursing home, or it wasn't a nursing home. It was one of those condominiums, the aged living, assisted living. It wasn't quite assisted, but yeah, it was the over 55s apartment buildings. And right there in the front door was a notice. Fire marshal service had come around, and their fire alarms weren't working. These are people that can't get out of their apartments. They can't get out of the building if there's a fire. And the fire alarms weren't working. I thought that was a kind of a one-off. And then I visited after she moved. She actually moved in to another facility, and I ran into Commissioner Kenny. And that day that I ran into you, right on the door of that facility, another facility, their alarm system, their fire suppression system was deficient. It was placing those residents at risk. Now, yes, it would be nice if the fire service was able to find these and recoup the funds and put them back into our general fund. We don't have that ability now, but that service it's deadly important, for lack of a better term, because it means that we're not getting out there. We're getting ahead of these things. We're making sure these systems are working. And if we don't have that properly staffed, Right now, we've got a huge backlog. So I think that position alone, whatever you want to call the level of it, it's a need. It's a need in our community. We're increasing the number of people that we serve with Mill Creek. We're increasing the number of businesses that we serve. So all in all, I don't think that I've seen, there's a few, I have a few gripes or a few questions like any commissioner about a few of these line items. But I think at the end of the day, I don't work in the office here. I don't see the need. I don't see our staff getting overworked in certain positions because we don't have enough headcount. And we're not asking for that much more here, considering what other agencies are doing, how they're staffing. We're still going to be beneath a lot of these agencies. And I don't think that we're being irresponsible by staffing up. And I don't see anything really in this list that is a high enough dollar amount in the broad scheme of things to either impact if we just line item vetoed a few things, to impact either the taxpayers or to really impact our budget as a whole. We know what the big tickets items are, and those, with very few exceptions, don't have a lot of wiggle room. We don't take in gross profit every single year that we get to pay out to tax or to shareholders. We're trying to keep things as balanced as possible, and our goal, I think, should be to look at the needs of the area, the needs of the community, the needs of the people that work here, and to provide a budget that provides for them. As nice as it would be to have a direct democracy where we could go to the voters every single time we wanted to do anything in the budget and have them all vote on it en masse. There's a reason for the model of government that we have in this country, that it's not a direct democracy. I actually was reading over the Federalist paper number 10, speaking about that this week, because we had a conversation. It was funny. It was a lot harder to read because they use a lot more bigger words than what we use today. A lot more bigger words. See, there you go. But it rang as true today as it did hundreds of years ago. So I think if you were to poll the majority of people in our district are underneath the age of 50, or underneath the age of 45, maybe. I don't know what the average age is, but I think a majority would be underneath the age of which heart attacks are something that could happen at any moment. Something that a 2-minute gap would cause you to die. And if we let all that majority who aren't at risk vote on that one particular issue, and they voted, let's just say that we can deal with a 10 or 11 because they personally could. What would that mean for the 49% or the 48% or the 40%? There's bigger implications here. So I know I'm soapboxing a little bit here, but I think that overall, we are providing a good service. We have been very frugal over the last 8 years since it's longer than that, since the recession, but since the recession kind of officially ended. And yes, there is scare of another one, and we are all being cautious. But I can't see a good reason to vote against this budget as a whole. I've only seen, I think, one vote come to this board about eliminating a single item. We've talked about the ones that we've added, but I don't think anybody's actually gone forward and said, let's amend this budget. Let's remove these 6 positions, and then let's talk about that and discuss it and decide whether we're going to do it. The one that we did, we decided that we did need a brush truck, given our needs and they asked. So, I encourage the other commissioners. The whole point of us deliberating and debating is to make this better if we can. Make this on something that we can agree on more if we can. If you want to bring those motions to amend this and bring up specific items, that's your right, and we can talk about them. But I think if those are the things that would change your mind and make you vote for it, and you want to remove them, and you can get us to remove them, and that would change your mind, bring them to the floor. If you're going to be a no vote afterwards, still bring them to the floor. That's the democratic process. But try to make this better. Try to make this something that you could agree to, if that's even possible. So with that, I think I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner Rowland. Commissioner Lawrence. Yes, well, I'm very moved by that, that you're reading the Federalist papers. That And if you had 3 more hours on the same vein, you'd probably convince me tonight. And I may be voting no. I mean, I will be voting no as more of a protest. And, next 2 weeks from now, I could say, I was wrong. So, and I know my vote isn't going to affect anything. So kind of just because there's something structurally wrong. Yeah, the 1% cap that we have, that it's all cities, agencies have that issue. And just somehow I just don't want to raise taxes in any way at this moment. And I just have a real problem also, because it was talking, Commissioner Chan brought it up. We should just vote on a budget, not do this line item stuff. And I don't want to know about a dishwasher that works for SCBA's, okay? Just because I trust these guys and gals. Okay, trust me. And it just, maybe just get a grip on the overall economics of it all, and also asking the taxpayers, do they want to pay for that? I'm all for doubling the amount, because I mean, we've talked about fast tracking. I mean, I'm all for, if that's what the citizens want, super duper service. I'd be great. I'd be behind making this the best fire service in the world. Because I think we got people here that would want to do that, and I'd be behind it, except I'm not spending, sort of a little bit of my money. But I want to know what they want, and I think we made a mistake with benefit charts. I feel sorry that I voted for them now. So also, just a little technical correction. If the human costs, the money we got to pay out for our staff, everybody else, union employees, lawyers, contract employees, is actually 80% of the budget, about over 80%. So money for stuff in buildings, it's like not a drop in the bucket, but it's amazing. It's people costs are huge when you roll in everything to deal with the people costs. It's like, so anyway, yeah, I give it a few more hours, and I might maybe change my mind, but I know it doesn't really matter what I vote tonight. I respect everybody's opinion to be wrong.
I always tell the voters, be careful about thinking your vote doesn't matter, because that's, I think, how Brexit happened. So.
Wait a second. We're getting to the hip area.
Thank you. Fair enough. Please don't talk every hand up.
Thanks. Maybe we beat this to death, but I'm going to try to bring us back up to the 30 or 50,000 foot level and ask the CFO to help us out. I think that the agency had a balanced budget last year, and the differences this year are a few big things. On the revenue side, you've got the new annexation money from Mill Creek. You got new construction that happened throughout the RFA. And then they're asking for a 2% increase on fire benefit charge, a 1% increase on the general levy, and a 1% increase on the EMS levy. I'm going to stop there for a second. CFO, do I have that correct?
You do. This budget is also balanced, though.
Yeah, so on the balancing side of this, on the expense side, we've been stuck with inflation. As somebody pointed out, we are a service-based business. And so a lot of it is in labor, and we just approved a contract that has a huge labor increase. So on the expense side, we're having to deal with inflation and a few new positions and a few new sets of equipment that the chief has put in his budget. That's also a balanced budget. And so we could have argued about this stuff a month ago. Nothing's changed since the budget was presented to us a month ago. The decision packets we're gone through one by one. Each of those was in the balanced budget. Maybe we failed by not making a bigger deal out of the 2% fire benefit charge increase, or the 1% general fund, or 1% EMS tax increase that was proposed to make the budget balanced, but that's not out of line. I don't think Mill Creek voters, I'll speak for them. I'm not elected, but I'll speak for them as best I can. I don't think they'd be surprised by that in the face of 9% on our labor contract, and 8+%. I don't know what point you want to take the number, but inflation, everybody sees every day, to only ask for 1% property tax, 2% on the fire benefit charge. I think they'll go along with that. So on behalf of the Mill Creek voters, I think this is a fine budget. And I think the time has passed for nitpicking the little details that should have been done a month ago. Thanks.
Thank you, Liaison Todd. Commissioner Hopper, you have a question?
I say we vote on it.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to accept resolution 11152022-19 as is.
On the question, actually, we have stop the thing, we don't vote on that, say, put on John.
One to approve and then
When the south.
okay, so. Thank you for that update. So we need to, the question being called, we need to vote on. What now again?
Basically, we're voting on whether we're done debating, whether we're gonna stop talking about this.
Okay, so are we done deliberating? Commissioner Kennedy,
Or Mr. Chair, you could ask Commissioner Bernhoff to just withdraw his request and move to a vote instead.
As long as there's no objection. I didn't want to assume everybody was done.
all right, thank you. All right,
Thank you, Commissioner.
thank you, Commissioner Kennedy, make the easiest path. All right, so you move to a vote. All those in favor of that resolution as is, signify saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
So that's 4. All those opposed say nay. Nay. So it's 5-2. What I count. And motion passes. Resolution passes. It is 8:41 and I'm going to suggest we do a 10-minute break. Chief Hovis.
If you may, Chair and Commissioners, I'd just like to thank you for this budget process. Also, members of staff that are here in this room and or maybe watching. This has been a good process. This is a team effort. I appreciate all of the comments made, Commissioners, but I really want to thank staff for all the contributions. And CFO just has joined our team this year for a successful budget process. And with that, I think that meant more than it would after the break. So thank you for providing me that time to say thank you.
Thank you, Chief Hovis.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll go come back in about 10 minutes at 8:52. All right, thank you. We are now on to the 2023 EMS levy resolution 1152-2022-20. Chair would like to entertain a motion. That.
So moved.
Which one by Vice Chair Rowland?
And be on this.
Seconded by Commissioner Fairclough.
Approve the budget, and then we have to go to
Discussion on the EMS levy. Okay,
Yes, thank you. I'm opposed to the levy EMS resolution for the same reasons that I opposed the budget. For the record, the important number to look at is actually the last page of this document, which is page 163 of 205. And it's called the levy certification. Kind of an odd name for this document, but it's used every year. And it actually tells the county what it is, the actual money that we want. And so the key there for the EMS levy is on the right-hand side. The $18,700,000 is the request there in the EMS levy. My argument is that we don't need that much money to fund the items that we don't need in the budget. I do want to note, I forgot, I didn't have my citations when I argued earlier. I wanted to be sure I had those for the record. When you look at the capital facilities reserve, the buildings reserve, we call it different names, but it's actually called the major facilities maintenance reserve. It's at page 62 of 205 at the bottom of the right-hand corner. That's the $25 million I call pile of cash that's sitting there. If anybody wants to find that in the budget, that's where it is. And then I also mentioned earlier the fund balance and the large multi-million-dollar fund balance that we have. You want to see a quick 2022 versus 2023 number on that. That's at page 158 of 205. And you can see the fund balance and also the a quick look at the bottom of the page at the numbers reflecting our structural deficit or our deficit for 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenny. Any other commissioners?
Just one question for Commissioner Kenny. Given the passage of the budget as is there a different distribution as far as percentages that you would prefer other than the 112 that we're looking at right now to fund the whole thing? I'm just asking, like, maybe me personally, I think we should put more of it on the benefits charge versus the levy. Or does those percentages seem, if you have to do it, those percentages are apportioned properly in your mind?
And so I don't know whether they're apportioned. I'm opposed to the overall amount.
I understand.
And this funds that overall amount. So.
So if that overall amount was something you agreed with, the way the percentages are, divvied up properly in your mind, at least if the budget was different.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to understand. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? All right.
Actually, I do have a question real quick. Just thought process, because I know we've talked a lot about the spending. Real quick, the thought process behind doing the 1%, 2% on the benefit charge, because I know that we can kind of put more of that on the benefit charge if we wanted to, and that's apparently a more equitable way of charging the customers so that, the larger ones and the smaller ones are taxed appropriately. Is there any thought behind why it wasn't all benefit charge versus what it is now? I'm just curious.
Well, historically, it's been increased annually by the 2%, and that's which is supposed to mirror historically, I believe, it mirrors property tax, the 1% allowable under state law plus new construction value. And so it's just historical.
Gotcha. All right.
I thought when we first come up benefit charge, I think the board discussion, we want to just give it 2%, right? I think there's a big discussions in there. They want to give it 2%.
Fair enough. Just curious. That's all.
I can answer that.
Go for it.
So the benefits charge is not permanent. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's only good for like
6 years.
six years. Yeah. So it's going to go back to the voters in, I guess, 4 or 5 years. And if we can make the argument, hey, we just increase this by 2%, it's easy for them to say, oh, they're responsible with it. So I'm happy to make it permanent.
Got it.
Thanks.
I'm still learning new things every single time. Thank you.
And for commissioners and staff and people watching this budget year 2023 will be the third year of the benefit charge. It was voter approved in 2020. So 2021, 2022, and now 2023. That was a 6-year measure. Thank you.
So, pictures, board members. Floor is to accept the adoption of resolution 1152022-0. So then move to. Say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. 2 nays. All right. General fire. Chair, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the 2023 general fire levy resolution 1152022-21.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Rowland. There's a second. Second by Commissioner Fernhoff. Discussion. Commissioner Kennedy.
Yes, thank you. I am opposed to the levy resolution number 21 for the general fire levy for the same reasons that as I have described earlier in the meeting. I did want to draw attention to the last page of this document, which is also indicated as the levy certification. On the middle of the page on the left-hand side, where the indication is for general levy at $41,250,000. That's the key number. That's what we're asking for the county. So it can be a little confusing, but that certification is key, and this is for that 41 million.
Any other board members? All right, let's go ahead. All those in favor of adopting that? Raise your hands by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
5-2, thank you. Chair, I'd entertain the motion to adopt the 2023 benefit charge resolution 11152022-22. Moved by Vice Chair Rowland, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Farnahoff, discussion? Commissioner Kenny?
Yes, I am opposed to the benefit charge resolution here, ending in 222 for the same earlier in the meeting. Thank you.
Any other board members? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
5-2, motion carries. On to item E. Chair would like to entertain a motion to adopt the 2023 COLA resolution number 11152022-23.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Rowland, is there a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Farnahoff.
Yes, thank you. I am opposed to this 2023 COLA resolution ending 2-3. The concern that I have is that, and I am, as a government employee myself, I am cognizant of the issues regarding COLAs and inflation and government salary keeping up with inflation. But the challenge that I think we face is that we have been very generous in the past when COLA inflation was lower and more stable with providing that each year. But as these have accelerated to very high rates, and it just so happens that the, well, unfortunately, in this circumstance, we use the June to June CPI. That's the highest of the year at 10.1%. CPI in February of this year was 8.1, April 9.1, June 10.1, August 9.0, and here in October it's 8.9. We use the June to June, that's the highest of the year. It's really not fair in one sense. We're giving that 10.1%. And I just, when CPI goes high, when inflation goes high, we just can't keep doing that year after year. Government employees are getting CPI every year. I can tell you at the city of Seattle, where I work, what I've at least read about, which it's not finalized there, but what I'm reading about from Snohomish County, they're getting a percentage of CPI. They're not getting full CPI. The government can't afford 10% CPI year after year after year, 9%, whatever it is. So I think we need to manage expectations around this, that we're going to give CPI every year. It's 10% next year, 10% the year after that. Are we going to keep doing that? Can we afford that? And you look at our union contract, even our union contract doesn't provide for that year after year. So while I understand the issue for our employees, and I have been very supportive of COLAs, I think structurally we can't keep doing full COLA CPI year after year, that we have to scale that back to some percentage of it. It's just too much. You know, when it's 2 or 3% per year, that's manageable, but 9%, 10%, that's way up there. And I just don't think we can continue to afford that. And the reality is that other governments are not doing that. So we're doing more than other governments. Should we? I mean, maybe based on the way things are going here, it's the way it is, but I think we need to rethink that. And I think that opportunity starts now. So I'm voting no on it.
Quick question, clarifying question. So June to June, historically, what has the RFA March 1 done for the comparison?
We've used June to June. We
So
just collected that.
Okay,
And I think it burns us this year. It burned us last year at 6.1 or 6.3%. That was like the highest. We benefited the year before that, it was one of the lower ones, so it does fluctuate, you know, you get lucky, you don't get lucky. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Wouldn't it make more sense that you take like an average of them? Because that to me, just getting lucky on one particular month and it's really high, or your detriment, it's really low. That doesn't really seem fair. It's about the year as a whole, or maybe, you know, maybe you have to pick a period of time, the first 6 months, the first 8 months, or what have you, but I do think it is problematic.
I see your concern, but I'm just trying to understand what precedents.
Would you like to make an amendment? To the,
No, I don't.
I would support you.
What was the average of those numbers that you said that June was the highest, but just overall, it sounded like June was 10, but there was 8 and 9 in there. It would be around 9, just in those 6 months, right?
Yeah, I didn't average it, but
No
yeah, it
problem.
would be somewhere
In the 9.
lower.
Not like 2 or 3%.
No, that's.
Yes, I think for the last 30 years, it's not new, my beef with cost of living increases. I could never understand them. How do you fight inflation if it's automatic? It just boggles my mind. It's always boggled my mind since I first started thinking, which was probably I was 40 years old then. Okay. And even, I mean, I belong to a union, basically. Masters, mates, and pilots, and we had to fight for every increase. It wasn't automatic. And all the private industry out there, they got to fight for their raises and their increases. And this automatic stuff is just, it's obscene, really, I think. It's obscene. So I'm voting no just on the basic principle of cost of living increases. So. Thank you. Commissioner Teofly.
Yeah, what page is this in the packet?
172.
174 in mine.
Okay.
One that was sent across might be different. Yeah, I get that. I think that was even with the union contract, that amount, we are in that inflation, that cost of living adjustment is huge. A lot of businesses, pardon me, a lot of businesses are these ones that I was working for were touting that they were going from a cost of living to a cost of labor, which depends on the labor market too. You know, that may be higher than the cost of living, maybe less. I know there's a lot of businesses out there that people have to fight for it. And the last thing I want to do is force, you know, non-represented staff to have to fight for it, force them into a situation where they feel like unionizing is the only way they're going to get a fair shake here and be able to afford, you know, the things they need to afford. That 9.5%, you know, if everything else has gone up in cost, it's kind of like if we give them less, we're basically asking them to take a pay cut, or at least the buying power of their money to be less. I'm very curious to see, because I thought kind of the same thing when it came to the union negotiations, because this is my first time doing it, and I'm like running through different numbers and moving averages and stuff. I'm kind of curious. Question for you, if you can kind of lay it out, Mr. Bothwell. It would be not for this meeting, but I would like to just see what would the effect of that be if we had always had a policy that it was the average of the last 3 years, and because it ends up getting paid later than maybe when the spike was and it was needed, how that works out, or alternate ways to maybe level those. I don't think I'm not suggesting that we do so, but I'm just curious about that. If there's any way to do it responsive, but also helps insulate from momentary spikes. Hopefully, we don't see a cost of living or the inflation rate go. I guess it would be nice if it went beneath 0%, but the only time where I've seen it do that was in the middle of a recession. So for it to recede and for us to get back any cost of living, you know, it's probably not going to happen. And I think right now, given the cost of everything, to your point, I don't think it's just the cost of wages alone that drives inflation. I think the inflation right now is being driven by a whole lot of greed.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's not being driven by the greed of the people that are working for us, needing to get more money out of us, then we have to charge other people more. I think it's just trying to keep their heads, above, and if a recession is coming, if it, that 1% or 2% more than what we'd be comfortable with, gives them a little bit of security, that would be good too, but let's hope it doesn't go there. I don't think we really have a lot of wiggle room. I don't know what number that you guys would be comfortable with is, given the 9% that we're at now and foreseeable future and last year and all of that, but without another number to consider, I'm relying on the people that know the staff.
Chief Otis?
No, I relinquish the floor to.
Thank you, sir.
You got 10 seconds.
Oh, sorry. You got 10 seconds. 10 seconds, okay, I'll be quick. Commissioners, the agenda bill on page 172 talks about the 9.5% June over June CPIW that the union represented employees in the contract that they're going to get. So I'm asking for the same thing for the non-represented staff. So it's 9.5. It was 10.1 for CPIU. We don't use that. It's 9.5. The previously mentioned floor and ceiling from the union contract would not go into effect until years 2024 and 2025. And if we took the 3 years that I've been chief, the 1.1% COLA, the 6.3, and this 9.5, divided it by 3, you're at 5.63%. That's all that more than 10 seconds. Thank you.
Well, yeah, it was.
Sorry, those numbers came real quick and I wasn't expecting them.
I was trying to get it inside.
Do that one more time. I'll give you another 10, but you got to 5.6 and I got
Three chiefs budgets, 1.1% COLA, 6.3% COLA, and this year's 9.5. So taking those numbers divided by 3-year average, if there was one, which I think you asked Mr. Bothwell for, would be approximately 5.63% raise in CPIW over the last 3-year period.
ignoring compound interest.
Ignoring. That's back of the napkin.
If I could just add that this is set by policy, and we are going to revisit policies in the first part of 2023. And so providing analysis like that during that conversation makes a lot of sense too. So I'll bookmark this conversation for that, but I just wanted to remind everyone that this is set by policy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence and then Jen.
Yeah, just clarify, reiterate my objection to COLAs and specifically targeted toward this COLA, the one we're discussing for us, but just in general, that it's, where did it ever come in? It's just like calling Social Security entitlements. Not entitled, people put into it. The other things that are entitlements, he's just giving the money away because people are entitled. I hate the word. Nobody's entitled to anything. They got to earn it, but we got this insanity that's taken over this country. And then printing money with the first thing, bailing out Wall Street when they should have been hung up to dry and just basically hung. All those people that crippled our economy there, and that added to bailing them out, added to the problem. And then the recent stuff going on where you got insanity of paying off student loans to buy votes, that insanity, it's just that built in cost of living increases, especially for government employees. Boom, boom, boom. You know, I'd like to see a survey done of how much government employees for the equivalent job in private enterprise. I don't know, but I've kind of heard that it's like private enterprise getting the short end of the stick here. Not that it's just in principle, that's what I'm objecting. But I think everybody here is great. Probably should get a raise. Except for Sean.
Thank you, Commissioner Lawrence. Mr. Jen.
Well, first of all, I don't think your example, averaging back 3 years, that's not the way you compare.
Not at all, but I've got a good memory for CPIW versus you and every.
Yeah, but for the last 2 years, before 2 years, there was no inflation, right?
We went negative.
Yeah, exactly. So that is not a good argument. Sure. And I get this feeling in here. This morning, CNBC just announced that the inflation was not as as that expected. It's slower than expected, and Biden now got a very good up in there that there's even talk about that the Fed may slow down on the interest rate. So my question is that now if suddenly the rate drop, what are we gonna do? So I like using the average part, the average rather than the fixed 9.5 in here. And I know that time when I speak, we have to be conscientious about our taxpayer. Okay, which I mentioned many times, very difficult for me to look at my good employee face and say, no, I'm not gonna give you what you want. But if my taxpayer do not get that number and why it's stay. And then actually, when we're gonna do another comparable of the non.
Salary survey,
Yeah.
we'll be talking about that with the commission next year
Okay,
for discussion.
for discussion. So again, I really want to, last time I did not like the survey, you know that.
I know that.
Okay. And I think this should be redone by a commissioner to conducting that, so put you off the, situation. It's bad, it's not you, blame on us. For those you haven't known about this, that person come from out of state, basically, in here and all that stuff, so I have a mixed feeling that I like you guys, but at the same time, I'm responsible to my commission. Either, do you want to make an amendment, or you don't want to make an amendment? And just say no.
Sandra.
If I make amendment, somebody gonna support me? Or-
You passed the budget, and then this is funding the budget that we just passed, correct? Gotcha. So effectively, if we were to amend this, we would have to go back and amend the budget. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a net zero budget. It would be a profit budget.
No, you don't have to go back and amend the budget. for
Wouldn't
something
have to,
like
but
this.
effectively, it would be a profit, and we'd be taking.
Therefore, we're not profit. Don't sue you to work for profit.
Our expenses would not-
Surplus.
are a surplus on the, basically, that we would be taking from the staff to put into our coffers for that surplus.
We're talking about very small dollars in the
So,
context
yeah,
of the budget.
Yeah, that's why, for that reason, I don't think I could support it.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, I think every time I open my mouth, I dig a deeper hole. I hope this time I don't bury myself, so. Cost of living, the way I'm gonna look at it, because I know I'm gonna vote no, but I know, I'm outvoted here with just me and Commissioner Kenny. But I'm gonna think of it in my mind that the staff deserves raises, including Chief Maxwell. Okay, and that's this is the raise that they deserve, and just block out the COLA and the concept of COLA. Because I don't want to apply my beef with the whole concept to everybody here. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Lawrence. Commissioner Teoflock.
Is it possible that we can vote for a percentage COLA for this year and not have a resolution that says it has to be based on CPI? Like the union? I guess I would kind of feel like,
What we're voting. Sorry, I was gonna say, what we're voting on is on a particular percentage. They base that percentage off the CPIW, but we're voting on a percentage. We're not voting for whatever CPIW is next year. We're voting for what we already have, right?
okay. So voting yes doesn't mean that next year's budget, whatever CPI is, that's what non-union staff will get. We could adjust that.
Right. Right, that was part of our policy conversation. We put apart for January or so.
Okay. And a question for CFO Bockwell. What's like a percent of this budget? Like if you said instead of 9.5%, it was 8.5%, what would that 1% equate to a dollar?
So based on this conversation, I wish I would have revisited exactly what that number would be, but if you're talking about like 1%, it's going to be in the tens of, like low tens of thousands of dollars. And I apologize, the analysis, we performed the analysis based on represented versus non-represented COLAs earlier in the process, like a couple months ago, and I don't want to risk misspeaking, but the dollars are not very large.
So more like 90 to 100,000 or more like 10 to 20,000?
I'm risking misspeaking here, but
Per percentage, he's asking like 5%. Value of proxy.
so my recollection is that the dollar value of the COLA for all non-represented people was around $200,000.
Okay.
So 1% change would equate to something like $20,000 if that number is correct, and I'm risking misspeaking on that though.
Well, you gotta be more into the total compensation. An employee is only 200,000.
No, the value of the COLA.
The value of the COLA cost.
Cost of the coal, there's no value to a coal.
Yeah, so it's still a lot of money, 200,000.
The whole thing, yep.
Yeah.
Sorry to correct.
Thank you. I see that one of our attendees has their hand up. Mr. Kenny, you have your hand up.
Actually, I'll pass. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chan.
Yeah, I think since nobody make any amendments, I think next year we're gonna have evaluations again, right? For the employee, for the non-represented employee,
Salary survey.
salary survey and all that, then we adjusted, so I will vote no on this because, again, that I think I get convinced by Lawrence now. Because most of my taxpayers don't get the COLA like that, so I'll vote no on this. And since you say it's not significant, so I don't think that's significant to the employee.
I think
The comment about significance was really about the relative value of non-represented folks to represented folks in the organization, not. There's very few people in this organization who are non-represented. That's what I meant, so I apologize for.
No, I was just gonna say that I knew you were gonna mention, you meant in totality of the budget, the significance is de minimis compared to the overall budget. And since the non-represented workforce represents probably 5 to 8% of our total workforce, I will just speak on behalf of our employee group and in this resolution that ask for this for the non-represented employees to match what the represented employees, both from the local 1828 and local 1828S are doing, the majority of our cost of labor. We know that we've had robust discussions about the salary survey, bringing in somebody different or different vendors to get in front of the commission to talk about having a salary survey that would be implementable at some time in the future. And this ask, I don't, with 99.99% confidence that our non-represented employees that are watching this now or would hear about it later would love to have that 9.5% increase for the resolution. Thank you.
I'm not sure, but I may be the only person here is actually in reception of a COLA. I was a former federal employee for almost 14 years. And I can tell you that the COLA was a really big deal in just keeping up with costs. From my perspective, we're not just talking about the chief officers in the room who would be a recipient of this COLA, is that correct?
Other than
non-represented?
Yes, there is no non-represented staff in this room other than myself and CFO Bothwell. I am not subject to this measure or any other contract employee. There are two others in this organization.
We're really not looking at an escalation and inflation of chief budgets or chief salaries as much as we are looking at the people that do the work.
I left off somebody that's behind you, sir, that would be subject to that. These two gentlemen to my left are getting it anyway.
Okay, so I could just tell you the importance, and even though it's from the dollar and cents point of view and spreadsheet and everything else, it is a really big deal. And especially during these times right now, when we are looking at the cost of fuel alone fluctuating and possibly jumping an additional 50 cents come January as a result of the state's environmental, they're not calling it a tax, it's a fee or something along those lines. The cost of living come January 1st in this state is going to be much higher. And I think it's incumbent upon us to take into account not only the well-being of our staff, but the continuation and morale, if you will, of the folks that work for us. They are the ones that make the wheel go around. They're not burning gold. They're not doing all the other things that we even pointed out here. And how important that is. Jim Kenny made that important notation. So keeping those people here, keeping them within our ranks and without going to have to go, I think is a very important conversation. It's more than just, are we throwing money at a problem, or are we just, giving money away? I think it's sustainability. I think it's the right thing to do, no matter what.
So you're trying to switch me back to convince me to switch it back?
You feel my mental waves coming your way. David.
All right, I agree with the Commissioner Farrenhoff said. I've not been a government employee in a very long time. I did for a brief period of time, but hopefully I don't get COLA. But I do recognize the value, and I do also recognize the word morale. And we want morale to be stay here in South County Fire. We don't want this to be a dream. So I'm going to vote for this.
And the one thing that I would add to it is that the cost of replacing an employee that decides to go elsewhere because they think they'll be treated better, whether it's true or not, the grass is always greener sometimes, but the cost to replace them both in the actual recruitment, the lost time, the amount of extra work that it puts on other people, as well as the cost of the organization as a whole. These positions specifically hold a lot of institutional knowledge that can't be transferred very easily sometimes. You do your best, but when you lose someone like that, there's always stuff that's lost in translation going to the replacement. So I do support this.
Well, it's very difficult. That's why I'm mixed feelings, right? I want to say to the all employees, if I don't know, it doesn't mean I don't like you or whatever it is. Okay. I don't want to be translated to that way. Then also I'm really concerned about that they will go away. I'm not sure that is really that you make a decision, right? Because they join union. I don't think we should really look at that way, kind of forcing us to think about, oh, okay, if I vote no, they will go away. I'm not sure that is okay. I'm going to make a say zero. Okay, so that's why I'm debating. I'm going to make an amendment to give just like Chris said that, Geoflex said that. A 7%. I think that's averaging out right now.
So there's a motion on the floor for the motion for to alter it to 7%. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Lawrence. All right.
Request for information from Mr. Bothwell there. What's the effective, if you need a calculator, got some time to figure it out, but just ballpark would be pretty close. What's the effective savings, quote unquote, that going from 9.5 to 7 in respect to our budget?
I would need to go to my office to determine that, but if I could just, the comment I made earlier about the significance of what we're talking about, 1%, 2% difference, that was related to our overall budget, not related to any specific labor group or anything like that. So I just wanted to clarify, because you said that and I kind of was flat-footed, but I was talking about $100 million budget. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. So we wouldn't go back and amend the budget for something like that. I just wanted to clarify my previous comment.
Yeah, totally understand. I was just talking about the implications of this particular amendment. So.
If you hope, then I can really say to my taxpayer, attempt to be averaging it out and you go to. That they would feel, okay, it's not that bad, the averaging out, it'd be more reasonable increase.
Any other discussions for the amendment?
It's a good compromise, yeah.
Just so I understand it, let's just throw out a number. Let's say that the cost of the staff is, they currently are at 2 million, or the cost of this 9% is 2 million or whatever. 2% difference in there, we might save $40,000 to $100,000 over the whole grand scheme of things, or
Oh, no, significantly less than that.
it'd be less than $40,000.
It could be 40, but I think it's probably significantly less. I would have to go back to it's definitely not $100,000, but I
So
can,
the effect of this proposal is to take $40,000 from the budget that would go to our staff and put it back into the budget for use elsewhere. I can't support that. The numbers just don't make sense.
Let me emphasize it. If you have a budget, well, it's only compared us $100 million, anything will be insignificant. I don't think we can, using that approach to evaluate it. To me, approach it is my message to my taxpayer. You are being treated, we are not treating our employee more. I mean, inflation, all that stuff, they suffer, not suffer, but they quote compensate like you. And I'm not sure an employee, because they do not get 2% increase, they quit or something like that. I don't know. I mean, that may not be logical too.
And I personally think that businesses that don't give cost of living, or at least allow people to get the raises that they need to be able to survive and to be able to make ends meet, and to keep up with all these additional costs, I think they're doing it wrong. So I don't think that.
Want to make the 7%, that's not mixing. I cannot go one or the other.
I'm just saying, I don't think that I can say that because some of our taxpayers are maybe not getting treated well at their jobs, that we should replicate that treatment to our employees and somehow say that we're saving them a little bit of money.
That's majority of them, that.
Understand. Thank you.
Just to give you an idea of how government employees typically work, there's something called step increases that occur naturally each year. It's a certain percentage based on what your GS rating is. On top of that, you can get a COLA, cost of living allowance. And then on top of that, there's something called locality pay. We happen to have one of the most expensive locality pays in the nation. We live in the Seattle area. It is very second, probably to Hawaii, where I ran a unit there for a number of years. So I think there's a lot more than COLA when it comes to trying to maintain people's ability to live and to operate within certain areas of our country. We happen to live in one of the most expensive areas of the nation. So just take that into consideration when we're talking about giving folks a bump.
Or to change the number from 9.5% to 7%. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say aye. Or nay.
Nay.
Nays have it. All right. So the original motion on the floor is to accept the resolution as it is. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Nay.
5-2 passes. All right.
Yeah, you got it. Commissioner Toffel, just so we get the number right, were you the aye or nay? I think there might have been a lag.
The second one, I was an aye.
Aye, okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Just timing in the video, so.
No problem. Unfinished business, redistricting plans. So,
Thank you, commissioners.
thank you, Chief Otis. Chair would like to entertain a motion to adopt the redistricting.
I mean, so it's like this, that we time too. I mean, a motion.
Been moved by Commissioner Chan. Is there a second? Commissioner Fairhoff seconds the motion on the floor.
Mill Creek is here. Thank you.
Any discussion?
Take it away.
I'll just say, I'll reiterate my comment before, in this plan to keep the commissioner's seat in the same district. It turns my precinct into a little dangling Florida. I'm just feeling comfortable about carving out any piece like that for any sitting member of any legislative body. I much preferred plan number 4, I believe it was. I did realize that plan number 4 assigned part of Mill Creek to, I believe it was Commissioner Kenny and Commissioner, Lawrence. And that one, given the area that I live in, that made District 4 still mostly unincorporated Snohomish County, and brought Commissioner Lawrence, who lives just outside the border of Mill Creek. I think it just makes more sense as far as keeping the communities of likeness together. I preferred plan number 4. And that I do realize there's the bylaws provision, which we can, given the feedback from Mike, Mr. Todd. Mill Creek doesn't seem like if number 4 passed, that they would demand that a liaison stayed on for the next 2 years until the next re-election of these 2 commissioners. So I would want him to confirm that. I very much prefer 4 just because of the way that it actually keeps those communities that are very similar, very close, share the same services together.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I think that we have a committee. Commissioner Daniel and I, during we look at, one thing we honored them is that we not want to be a 3 commissioner, which is Commissioner Kenny objective sending you
Plan 1.
So what,
Plan 1 had it split into 3 pieces.
3 phases?
That was the first one. I'm not advocating that one either. So,
Right.
yeah, okay.
But anyway, so then we thought that's what we find 2 is the best compromise.
So so this is it, we gotta vote yea or nay on 2?
Yeah,
Correct. We can amend it if we wanted to once.
Yeah.
We don't have the other maps.
I make a motion to amend it, so to voting on number 4, which is the natural boundary, and my feelings would be very hurt if we chose number 2. Liaison Todd has a hand up there. So let him speak first, then we'll come back to me.
You made a motion. So
I would second the amendment.
okay, so
Is there a way that we could pull up the map for so people can see it?
we will. But there's an amendment on the floor and it's been seconded, so now we're having discussion and liaison, Todd, you have your hand up.
Yeah, and maybe we're not equipped tonight. I thought we determined that the bylaws as they stand would not make option 4 workable.
Yes.
My personal opinion early in this discussion was that I didn't care to be the liaison. I don't think the Mill Creek community wants to have a liaison for many, many years. And that's a true, that I believe I made that statement. I stand by it. But I think the way the bylaws are written, it may require that something be done where one of the positions for a district, not an at-large position, is up for election and available to the Mill Creek voters in this next election, next in 2023. So it's a legal opinion at this point. Thanks.
So it's my understanding that the bylaws don't prevent us from doing it. I mean, we could amend them right now. We could amend them in the future. They don't overrule any decision that we make in a normal vote. The other piece of that is, having gone through the bylaws, all the bylaws required as they're currently written isn't that we couldn't redistrict it immediately. It was that so long as the area annexed didn't have an area of it that was reelected, they were entitled to have a seat on the board as a non-voting board member. That's all the current language allows for. It doesn't say anything about how we have to redistrict.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wish this was brought up. We presented this up 3 times already. That's the 4th time. I wish this was brought up much earlier, and I don't see you said the difference of the whatever an incorporated. I don't see any difference between an incorporated resident versus a city resident. I don't think there's a huge difference in that. And then now we change that. What happened? Somebody go and object to your bylaw changes. Then what would that do then, right? We cannot make assumption that the bylaw will be changed, right? So I think we should vote whatever the bylaw said right now. And then maybe you want to, later on, you want to change it again to 4, but I would say just, we have gone so long on this already. I just want a conclusion in here tonight and not contingent on something else we can change. I think that's how we should proceed with it.
I think if we didn't amend the bylaws, or if that didn't pass, it would just require that Mill Creek assign somebody to that seat if they wanted to keep somebody in it. So
Well,
that would be the impact that I.
but I think, I respect what liaison Todd said, and he was, I think I respect what he said, and we just kind of agree with that, and that's what the committee have take that rule to do all this work again.
We're also need to recognize that with not like Terrace McGuire coming on board, it's going to cause us to revisit this topic. Commissioner Lawrence, you have your hand up?
Liaison Todd, go first.
Okay. Liaison Todd, you have the floor.
I think it seems like we need, if the desire is to have it be Plan 4, then the process is to change the bylaws and then adopt the redistricting under Plan 4. To adopt Plan 4 today in violation of the bylaws is just fraught with danger.
Very well said. Commissioner Lawrence.
Okay, so I'm confused. I just heard Micah say that it isn't in violation of any bylaws. So what's his what? In other words, okay, it's all right. I can have my feelings hurt. We can move on. I withdraw the thing like the amendment. Just so we can move on and get home tonight. It's not really that important to me. Okay? I don't know anybody down there anyway. So just looks nicer.
All right, so we have the amendment on the floor. All those in favor,
No, he withdraw. There's no amendment now.
so we have to withdraw the second as well.
Yeah, he draw the second.
Okay.
In
Remember
Robert's
that.
rules, once the motion is made and seconded, it's the body owns it. No longer can be removed.
Oh, we got a
Thank you for
vote.
that. So we'll go ahead and vote on the amendment.
All who doesn't want it, raise your hand. No.
All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nays have it. All right, so now we're back to
Give me
the
the vote.
motion.
Thanks, Mike.
Adopt Plan 2. Any further discussion? All right, not seeing. All those in favor of adopting Plan 2, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. 1 nay. All right, thank you. And we now go on to committee updates. Bylaws, Commissioner Rowland.
We had a really good meeting last night, went over the bylaws, got everything divided up into what really is bylaws versus policies. So we've got all that split out, and we also looked at the form of the bylaws to make them more compliant with just standard forms, numbering of articles, content, that type of thing. We're going to be meeting here, I believe it's in 2 weeks on the 28th. Is it? It's a Monday. Yes, the 28th. To continue work. At that point, we're going to be looking at trying to get the bylaws portion of it much more buttoned down than it is right now. It's going to be right now, our executive assistant is working on making those changes so we can see it. And then we'll play around with that and then try to get to the policies after that. We just don't know as far as the timing, what that means, but our goal is to really nail down the bylaws portion and then when it comes to the policies, we'll do the best we can for all of this. If there's anything where we have contention or we think that, the board really needs to decide on this section right here, if we're going to continue to do business in the policy this way, we'll come forward with we recommend that we pass all of this. These are the sections that probably, unless there's broad consensus for, we should debate separate. And then we can pass what everybody agrees on, and then try to, insert in the things that may require a little bit of negotiation or changes. So trying to do it as easily as possible. So I'm looking forward to doing some more work on the 28th.
Thank you. Also, under the bylaws, formally remove myself from that committee. Something I've been meaning to do the last couple of meetings and forgotten, so I'm doing that now at this meeting. Next item is the Snow 911, and the meeting was canceled for tomorrow. So November's meeting was canceled because the quorum was not going to be reached. And so the next meeting will be in December, and it'll be at their new headquarters. So Chief Lois, did you find out that you don't have to attend the meeting tomorrow as my alternate?
Thank you.
Thank you. It'll be interesting to see what headquarters look like, having a meeting spot there.
It will be interesting.
And hybrid is not an option, so we all have to show up in person.
It will be interesting. Maybe we want to purchase some of these owls or whatever I'm looking at here to make this room functional.
Right.
After that, so it'll be fun to watch.
Now we're on to item 14, Commissioner comments. Anybody have anything?
Better not.
Oh. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to raise the issue, Mr. Chair, of your email last Thursday. Meetings shorter and your attempt to create a procedure where for anything in the packet, commissioners have to do an email by Sunday night. So I'm concerned about the process of you sending them out that email, trying to tell the commissioners how to do something. I think that's a violation of one of our bylaws, which I noted in my email to executive assistant. And I thought it was a subject that might be useful as a discussion amongst because I think that we have a cultural divide here on the board between perhaps those that like to ask questions and those that don't. I would note that tonight, which is one of the most important meetings of the year, the third meeting of November every year is the budget meeting. It's very important. It can be contentious or not. Tonight, there were lots of questions from lots of commissioners. It's a very informative meeting and a good discussion for the public to also hear, which is part of the purpose of these meetings. And so to the extent that your process would try to reduce the ability of commissioners to ask questions, I think violates the core function of a commissioner in their governance and oversight of the RFA. And so, but I do think the issue of time, how long our meetings run versus questions and how we learn from each other and debate in public, those are all good things to talk about. I'm happy to talk. Lawrence doesn't want to.
No.
But that might be something we might want to talk about at our retreat coming up, or maybe a meeting in December where we tend not to have as much on the calendar to talk about these issues to see if there's perhaps some consensus around them or not, or what have you. But I do think it's something that deserves a discussion here at the full board.
Roland?
I just want to say on that matter, the way that I read it is it was just a kind of a polite request. It's not a requirement in that email. And I think that, if we have a lot of questions that get into the weeds, sometimes we don't know them until the meeting. Sometimes we know them ahead of time. And any time that we can give for staff to be able to get all the information they need to be able to answer those is always well spent. Like I said, I don't see any requirement here. But I did see that, this might help us shorten meetings. And I would agree, if there are some of these questions that get into the weeds that we could get our answers to, so we could either speak on them, even us more informed of what the responses are, as opposed to trying to think on our feet with some of these complex issues. I don't think it's a bad idea. I would definitely oppose it if it was a requirement that we couldn't ask questions beyond that. But I think for right now, it's not a bad idea. Just for us, if we have them, try to make things easier on all of us and easier on staff when we can. So I just wanted to say that maybe I read it differently, but
By no means was it a requirement, it was just a simple request, just to shorten it like the meeting. Right now, we're pushing out that launch. That was the only thing that wasn't too high in any information or thing. Also to provide staff an opportunity to give a full explanation and then send it back to the whole commissioner group, so everybody would see the question, give a full response. So Commissioner Lawrence, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just, I didn't quite understand it, but if it's just the idea that if you have something that's on your mind, you really want to ask, and it requires staff to go dig into some information just to make things flow, then that makes sense. But other than that, that's how I could see that being used. But we kind of already we've asked for that kind of stuff before. You got any stuff, just notify, send Melissa questions, ask the staff, so we have that information. We'll discuss it on our retreat, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gernhoff, then Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I just want to say that I have to agree with, Commissioner Kenny. And that the observation might be that we're trying to box ourselves in with rules of engagement. But really, I think just the goal is to say, hey, can we get out of here at 9:30? Many of us have different things to do. Just the fairness. However we get there, or we're submitting questions ahead of time, or maybe a phone call, I don't know, something along the way that allows us to smooth the process. I think that was the intent. This is certainly not trying to, circumvent any rules or anything like that. At least that was my perception.
Thank you. Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I get clear. If the chair want to do something like that, it should be really discussed in the meeting, not sending an email out like that, right? Because first of all, that's the reason we have meeting here. The meeting is not just for a commissioner, it's for the public. I think the goal is not a short meeting. The goal is to raise the critical issues and the board how to resolve them. And the way to get a short meeting, I have to say, when I was a chair, it's a short meeting. But given there's only 5 commissioners, right? And 5 commissioners, those are very experienced commissioners. So a lot of things we don't need to say. But we have to look at the camera and discuss the thing. And you vote yes or no, why you vote yes or no. So the public know. An email like that back and forth in the background, I think it's against a public meeting act. You don't want to do something behind it. And also, the way to do the meeting is put less important thing in the agenda, just limit to 4 or 5 major agenda. And second, you don't send out 205 pages and keep a short meeting. And also that Melissa has that thing that we should really reorganize our package. Right now, every single pages is important. You should basically import an agenda bill in front and the rest of them attachments. So I don't go from page 1 to all the 25 to find out important thing. And also, we set up, and there's many things happen on Monday and Tuesday. So that is really difficult. We have a lot of questions I can't know the answer, but I have to say in the public. And I usually, when I did that, I always give the staff, hey, I'm going to ask you a question. You might not have everything, but I want to address it a little bit. So that to me is critical. What happened to prior chair? Even we ask questions, we could go through him to get approval. And that was a really, it's not operable. So I encourage the chair, anytime you make a decision, again, let's discuss it right in the open meeting. Hey, I want to change it. How do we shorten the meeting, and rather than just an email out? And because email in and back, and the staff have to get an email back before the meeting, there's any more work to them. So that's what I'm suggesting. And then if someone gets along with it, you might want to say, hey, can you summarize it a little bit, and that type of thing. That's my suggestion, how to run a short meeting.
So my only comment would be, I don't think that there was anything saying that if you put stuff in here, you can't bring it up at the meeting. If it's something the public needs to know.
But the
whether-
email we
let me-
sent,
can I not be interrupted, thank you. If it's something the public needs to know, and we're just getting more information, again, putting them on the spot means that we're getting incomplete information. So again, this is just a request for you guys. We're just trying to, I think I would say, I didn't help craft this at all, but I think that the goal here is that we do figure out ways that we can be more efficient, but asking questions to staff directly wouldn't violate the Open Meetings Act. I think you've done it before. I know that Commissioner Kenny commonly would have emails that went out to the chief with a bunch of questions so that the chief could be prepared at the meeting for them. And I just think it's common courtesy when we can do it, if it will help smooth things along. It's just like you said, I think it's a good reminder of something that we've done in the past and something that maybe some of us didn't know or could do more, should do, because I know I could do that too.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Claudia. I'm
Commissioner
not sure.
Lawrence
you-
had his hand up.
Yeah.
Commissioner Chan, then I'll call him. Commissioner Lawrence, you wanted to.
Yeah, let's, I think it's getting too late to have this discussion. Let's save it for our coming up retreat. And then just bring your boxing gloves.
Thank you, Commissioner Lawrence.
No,
Oh, Commissioner Chan, then I'll call you.
Yeah, I just want, I'm not using, I guess, ask chief, and did I ever surprise you, a question you don't aware of? That I want to extend. the question.
If ever, never felt that it was intentionally done. No.
No, but if I want a big subject, I'll give you a heads up, right? Hey, I'm gonna ask you the question. right? So it's,
Staff
he
appreciates
never
that.
gets surprised. And then a lot of things come out, it just have to be, deal with.
Want to make sure I don't step on any toes when you're done with that conversation, because I am not a commissioner, but you mentioned the retreat. And I wanted to mention, commissioners, that I failed to in my fire chief report, let you know that we're also having All-American Leadership join us here at staff the day before on December 1st. So we're gonna have a revisit from the All-American Leadership team on December 1st here, one day for the staff. First thing. Second thing, I want to just, if you'll provide me 30 seconds, and thank Battalion 15, Ladder 10, Engine 23, and A23 Adam specifically, plus the other units that responded that did a vent inter-isolated search, what we call VEIS, to take someone out of a working house fire today. And I apologize for texting. I wanted to get that update from the battalions that made a difference in somebody's life today to get them out of a burning house to the hospital to be okay. Some people will work 30 years and never have the opportunity to do something like that. So the crews today and commissioners should be really proud of all the other units that were there as well, but the main players, those people that make that effective rescue today. You should be proud of yourselves, and it's what we've all supported here. So thank you for your service, and you needed that update, commissioners. Thank you. Nothing else from staff.
I think that actually kind of deserves a round of applause. I'll clap for myself.
The only thing I have to add for the commissioner comments is that we have a special meeting coming up on Tuesday, the 29th, and then we have the retreat on that Friday, the 2nd. So with that, we are going to executive session, review the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 sub 1 sub G as in George.
Thank you, commissioners. Good evening.
How many minutes?
We will start off with 30 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you.
There's going to be any action. No action afterwards. Just information.
The executive session has been extended for 15 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 15 minutes. The regular meeting has been called back to order at 11 o'clock. And without objection, the regular meeting has been adjourned at 11 p.m.